What up, what up? It's Garage Gym Homie. Today, I'm talking about my first time in Los Angeles County Jail. Is it worth it? Before we get into this, please click the subscribe button. I got content coming out all the dang time for you. So click subscribe and let's get into this. Hey, so I just wanted to make a video. You know, I said I was going to make more content about addiction, my past and stuff like that, nutrition, stuff outside of reviews. And I thought this would be nice to, I want to document some of my experiences. You know, this is kind of like my way of writing a book, you know, sharing my experiences with my viewers and letting you know. I guess the point of this video is to let you know where my disease took me. Just one experience of it. So when I was out in LA, I went out there, I think I was 21 years old. And I came out there and it only took me 10 days before I got arrested for the first time out there. And I'd been to jail before in Michigan several times. And I just thought I could run wild there. So I was staying with this guy's house, an apartment in Studio City, California, Los Angeles in the Valley. And I was staying with him my first 10 days there, and I was going wild. And I was, you know, getting high one night, and I was paranoid. And I kept seeing, like, hallucinating police out the window. It had to be 4 a.m. or whatever, and I would see these police peeking in through the window, and I was hallucinating. My boy told me, you know, just go to sleep, whatever. So I woke up 2 hours later to the cops kicking in the door, and lo and behold, I was not hallucinating. They actually were surveilling the place, and they arrested the person who owned the apartment and myself. And they took us in the cop car to the Van Nuys police station, which is where you go for booking and all that if you're in the Valley, if you're in Studio City. So anyway, this guy was trying to tell me, you know, he was trying to tell me what LA County Jail was like and trying to describe it. He said it's hell, worst place in the world, just wait and see, whatever. So this was a drug charge for, you know, I didn't know what they were charging me with yet, but I know what they caught me with. And I can only talk about so much on YouTube because I don't want to get it, you know, kicked off or give any reason for my channel to get banned. So I'm going to give you all the details I possibly can. So anyway, so we get to the Van Nuys police station. This is not a time where I'm like withdrawing from heroin or anything crazy like that. I had been off that stuff for, you know, some months now since I left Michigan. And when I left Michigan, I went to Texas for a few months, and then I went to LA. So anyway, so the point is, I got to the Van Nuys holding station, and I found out I was charged with sales of prescription drugs and sales of something else. I forgot what it was. And the guy who owned the place was charged with sales of coke or whatever. So the point is, it was crazy. We were in a holding cell, and they got this guy who was coming around asking everybody about their cases. Oh, what happened with you? Did you do this? And I was like, they implanted a snitch in there. And I just was like, this is different. Like, I spotted it. He was trying to get information because I saw when we all left to go from Van Nuys to LA County Jail, he didn't go with us. So they pulled him out of that cell. So I think it was a cop or an informant they put in there. So anyway, they send us out to the place where you get arraigned on your charge. And before you get arraigned, they provide you with a public defender, or what they call in LA County Jail public pretenders. So they give you a court-appointed lawyer. And this guy looked like Steve Carell, man. He came up to me. He had my paperwork in his hand. And I think I had already slept for a couple nights at the Van Nuys police station before this occurred. This was years ago, so it's hard to remember. And he's telling me, this guy was a clown, man. I mean, suit didn't even, you know, when their suit doesn't even match, homie, they are not a good attorney. So he's reading the charges. He goes, they either want to give you probation or 2 years in prison. I said, probation or 2 years in prison? Those are two totally different things. What the heck are you talking? What is it? He's like, well, it looks like here, yeah, they want to give you 2 years in prison. So I'm like, okay. So he goes, just go plead. We'll go plead not guilty today. They'll arraign you. They'll set a bail, and then you'll either bail out, you'll go to county or whatever. I mean, I didn't have anything right then, man. I mean, I was broke. They had raided us. They took everything for evidence. I didn't have anything to bail out. And so they arraigned me, and they gave me a bail of $200,000, and they put some special note on it since it was a drug charge that the bail has to be proven of where it came from or something like that. I forgot what it was called. So anyway, so they said, I can't bail out on $200,000. Even 10% of that with a bail bondsman is 20 grand. I didn't have that, and I couldn't call my family, to do that for me at this point. I was already running from Michigan. So anyway, so I go to LA County Jail, and this place is like a whole nother world, man. I thought I had known something about jail because I've been to jail in Oakland County here in Michigan and all that. There's nothing. I don't think there's anywhere in the country like this. This has to be the hardest jail ever. Crazy. And after this story, man, I'm not going to go into it, but I've spent a lot of time in there and a lot of different occasions, many, many occasions. This is just my first time there. So they're asking me, when I get in there and we're in the holding place, it could take up to 2-3 days to even get a bed in there. And so you're just going through different lines. You're going through medical. They check, make sure you don't have open wounds. They do everything for, days. You're sitting in this holding cell. You have to shower naked with, 50 men, and then they change you out of your clothes, put you in the jumpsuit, and it's quite an experience, man. And it's horrible. All you want, it wears you down so much. All you want is a bed. You're not even upset to be there anymore. You just want to rest your head. You're so exhausted. That's how, from the court process to the days, whatever it could take to get a bed, you just want to lay your head down, man. You're not even mad to be there. You just want a bed. So anyway, when we finally got, and they're asking me, the white boys in the cell, they're like, what are you? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I? They're like, are you Hispanic? Are you white? Whatever. They knew I wasn't black. I said, I'm white. They're like, okay, you're a Peckerwood. You roll with us. Da, da, da. They're explaining the politics. I'm not used to that. I'm used to, people in Oakland County or Michigan jails or other jails where it's like inmates versus the police, not inmates versus each other. So they're explaining all the rules to me that I didn't know because they knew I wasn't from there. They could tell. And they're telling me, you can't eat with black people. You can't trade stuff with black people. Don't be playing cards with black people. You can do this with the Hispanics. If there's a riot, you better jump. For the white boys, you better fight for us. They're telling me all the rules, all the politics of what I can and can't do with black people, which is basically nothing, and what I can and can't do with Hispanics and the white boys and this and that. So it's crazy, man. So finally, and I'm in a holding cell, and I'm younger, man. I'm just 21, whatever. So finally, I get a bed. And I remember waking up. I must have been able to get about 30 minutes of sleep. And I woke up, man, to this cop they did what was called flashlight therapy over there. They called it in LA County Jail. And the cop, they used to have these big mag lights. Now I think they've limited them to a certain size because it got out of control. This inmate wasn't waking up like they wanted him to on his bunk, and his head was hanging off his bunk. This is my first night in LA County Jail, and his head was hanging off his bunk, and the cop, the metal bunk bed, tried to take that flashlight and smash it on the metal bunk to make a noise with the light in the bunk to wake him up. Missed it completely, cracked his whole dang head open. So that was crazy to see. So then they take everybody in a room and they're asking you, what did you see? What did you see? And of course they're talking about a cop, so you better say, you didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Everybody says they didn't see anything, of course. So, because you don't want any trouble there. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy enough, man. So I'm dealing with this whole different breed of people in there that I've never really, the white boys there weren't like the white boys I'm used to, man. They were skinheads. They were just a different breed, man. Just an intimidating bunch. I mean, this was not like anywhere I've been. And it's a city, man. It's 20,000 inmates at any given time are there. So they start throwing me, you go to a bunch of different places in LA County Jail before you go to somewhere you're going to be for a little bit. And even then it's all temporary. They can move you around. So I've been to the men's central jail and the dungeons, they call it, 5-man cells. I've been in 10-man cells. I've been in solo by myself. Finally, I ended up in a dorm in what they call the Twin Towers there, which is connected to the men's central jail. And the Twin Tower, I was like on floor 7. And whatever, they ended up giving me a job as like a trustee. They could see I had like a semi-low security level. They called me a flight risk because I wasn't from California. I didn't have a, California identification. So they're like, yeah, we got to put a large bail on this guy. That's what they did at court because he's a flight risk. You know, he's not from here, yada, yada. They were probably right, man. I would have probably booked the heck out of there. Who knows? So anyway, so I have a court date scheduled now for like a month, man. And what happens is, I know I'm all over the place with the story. So just these rules, man, are insane. You can't imagine the amount of rules the inmates put on each other. I mean, it's like military strict. And if you step out of line, the cops don't need to discipline inmates. They let the inmates discipline themselves because it's such a structured system. And it's kind of looking back, man, it's kind of a mini version of the real world because it's like the media and the news have us all fighting with each other, so we're not paying attention to what they're doing. It's kind of a brilliant system the cops have set up there in LA County Jail. It's the same as really out here on a smaller scale and the West Coast, the California State Prison System. It's like they got you so distracted with fighting with each other because you're, black this and Mexican this, and there's South Side, there's Paisas. Paisas are like the Mexicans who don't speak English, like the, real like immigrants. They're a whole another group. Then the Southsiders are like the gang members. They're the more Americanized Mexicans who are freaking like just nuts, man. And these are people who just have basically committed that their whole life is going to be in and out of jails and prison, man. That's the kind of people you're dealing with in there. So I spoke out, man. I ran my mouth like an idiot and had to learn a lesson, man. I said something in front of the Mexicans one day to a white boy. I was like, these politics are stupid. I was like, I don't get it. I was like, this whole blacks versus whites, this, that. I was like, well, why can't it just be inmates versus the cops? I ran my mouth like an idiot. I stepped out of line. And the Mexican, what the heck do they call it? The shot caller, they called it the guy who had the keys to the house, the rep. That's what it's called, the rep of the Mexicans. In each dorm or each place you're in, there's a rep, which is like the person in charge of your race. There's a white rep. In my dorm, there's a Mexican rep. Mexican rep went to the white rep and said, this guy ran his mouth, man. So either you guys got to, you know, like boo-bop him. That's what they called it when you beat someone up. Or we're going to boo-bop him. And of course, the whites aren't going to let Mexicans put their hands on me, because you can't just let Mexicans, you can't let another race put their hands on somebody. Like, the whites weren't going to stand it. So they said, we'll beat them up. So they said, we got to beat you up. You know, we got to boo-bop you because you said this and that. And the Mexicans are pissed about it. We don't want to do it, but we have to, or else they're going to do it. And then it's going to cause a riot. Because you can't let, if a person from a race puts their hands on someone from another race, everyone has to jump. So you basically do everything you can to avoid peace. And I've been in riots, and I made a video about it. You can check it in my my playlist about you know, my addiction past and stuff. I've been in a riot in LA County Jail. It was the scariest time of my life, hands down. So anyway, so they took me in the showers, man. 3 white boys on me, and they jumped me, and I had you got to swing back, and I'm not a fighter, man. I hate fighting, you know. So, but you got to do what you got to do. You swing back, and they go for 23 seconds. That's like the white boy number. 23, it represents the Peckerwoods, whatever that means. And so they go for 23 seconds as hard as they can on you, and then it's done. And then I've satisfied. So I learned my lesson and keep my mouth shut. And that's just how it is, man. You learn lessons in there. So I was in the dorm, man. They gave me a job. I was a trustee. And they had me answering the phones for the for what they called inmate information. So it's like a group. My job as a trustee means they give you a job in the jail. It means you're like kind of well behaved. Your security levels is certain, you know, low enough where they can just, they give you a job. You either work in the kitchen, you do this, you do that, you clean this area, do that, whatever. It gets you out of the dorm. And you're wearing, I think it was greens instead of blues, jumpsuit. So they gave me that finally. So I was working inmate information, which was a cush job in there. It was pretty cool for being in there. There was like 12 of us in a room in front of a computer, and a computer only had access to this one thing. And the people would call and ask about their family members. So like, you know, someone who's locked up, their sister would call and say, I'm just trying to find out his next court date. And I'd look up the inmate, and I'd say, oh, his next court date is here. It's an arraignment, or it's sentencing, or I'd tell her what was going on or where he's housed, you know, and I had access to all that. So it was kind of a cool job to have. You know, sometimes you get some better food, you know, like the food in LA County Jail is the worst food I've ever had in my life. There's, the meals there were just horrendous, homie. I mean, stuff that you would never want to ingest. They had a meal that was supposed to be teriyaki. We used to call it scary-yaki. The best thing they had there was chicken sandwich day. They had, I mean, the stuff, the mush that you ate, it was worse than stuff you see on TV in jail food. The cheapest, most horrible stuff there is. It wasn't like prison. I'll talk about that in a future video. So anyway, the system there is so crazy. It's just this revolving door. You're just, you're nothing, homie. I mean, you're nothing there. Unless you got money and you got a real good lawyer, the game they play there is this. They send you to court. They put a crazy amount of bail on you. They offer you like a prison sentence or something insane. 2 years in prison, this or that. Oh, 2 years with halftime. They give you a deal. They hope you take the deal right off the bat. You say no. Then they send you back to jail. They send you back to the... They send you back to jail, and they schedule a court date for like another month. So you sit in jail for another month, go to court. Then they offer you another deal that's a little less. So this time they'll say, okay, 1.5 years in prison. They'll give you a little better deal. You say no. They'll send you back to jail for another month. They'll schedule a court date out because you can't bail out because it's just insane. And then you come back and they'll offer you a better deal. And you keep doing it and doing it and doing it until they finally give you a deal that you can agree to, or you take it to trial and you risk losing. And the problem with taking it to trial is if you lose trial, they give you the maximum sentence, worse than the first deal they offered you the first time. So no one, hardly, unless you got a murder rap or something insane, you don't want to go to trial because you risk losing trial. Chances are you're guilty. Most people I know in LA County Jail were probably supposed to be there. I don't mean that everyone's supposed to be locked up, but I'm just saying, I don't think that I was surrounded by too many innocent people, judging by, you know, the conversations I had and the people that I was surrounded with. So they just wear you down, man. And when they send you to court, you don't just go to court, man. They wake you up at 3:30 a.m. You go all the way down in this line that takes, you know, a couple hours, sit you in a holding cell for another 2 hours, put you on a bus, shackle you next to some, maybe a murderer. I've been shackled next to murderers a couple times. Send you to court. You sit in a holding cell there on the coldest room you've ever been in with a bunch of dudes who are all there and from different parts of the jail. So they sent me back to Van Nuys Court in this case a month later. And I had fired Steve Carell at this point, and I asked for what's called a state-appointed attorney instead of a public pretender. So they're supposed to be a little better. I requested a state-appointed attorney. She came in, she said, this is the deal they're offering you. I have to schedule, if you don't want it, I got to schedule your court date for another month from now because I'm going on vacation, it's holiday time or whatever it was. So I ended up firing her too. And this is what happened, man. Listen to this. So that's how it is, man. They just wear you down. So you're going through this process 3:30 a.m. multiple times, waking you up. You're underslept. You're sitting on a hard floor in the most coldest air-conditioned room ever. Everybody got their hands in their jumpsuit. And I suppose they do the air conditioning on purpose to keep people from fighting or whatever. They put you, everyone's got their hands in. You're lucky. You're a real lucky guy if you can get a roll of toilet paper in that cell, because then you can lay on the concrete hard floor and at least have a little pillow to put your head on and maybe get 20 minutes of sleep or whatever. And then they shuttle you back to jail, give you a couple burritos, and you do it all over again in a month. That's the process, man. It's like traumatic, man. It's like abusive. It's terrible. So, and I didn't really realize it till after the fact how crazy it is. So I fired that state-appointed attorney, yada, yada. And so I'm telling you, so I'm working this inmate information line, and this guy calls up, and it's a lawyer, and he asks about his client. And I'm like going to try anything. And sometimes the cops listen in on the phone to make sure you're not doing anything shady or whatever, you know, like sweet talking someone's sister or trying to, pull a move or whatever. But this lawyer called, man, black dude, I could tell he was a black dude. And he's asking about his client. Before he got off the phone, I just thought to say, hey, you're a lawyer? I need a lawyer. And I was, I'm a slick talker, I'm manipulative. That's how I was, and I was able to talk him into representing me. And I said, listen, I need a lawyer badly. I told him a little bit about myself. I said, I can't pay you until I get out, but as soon as I get out, I can pay you. And this dude showed up for me, man. I took the risk of asking. His name was Thaddeus Culpepper. And come to find out years later, if you look it up, man, he was the same lawyer who represented Suge Knight when Suge Knight just went to LA County Jail. And I was reading articles on hiphopdx.com about Suge Knight, and his lawyer got in trouble for, I don't know what it was, doing something, tampering with a witness or doing something on the street for him. And they said the lawyer's name, Thaddeus Culpepper. I said, that's the guy I freaking talked out of the thousands of lawyers in LA. It was like a trip, man. It tripped me out. And so Suge Knight had the same lawyer I did. And I talked to this guy when I was working at Inmate Information. I got him to come and represent me, man. He was a private attorney, wasn't a public defender. So he shows up, man, to Van Nuys Court. Now I've been in there for 4 months. He shows up to Van Nuys Court. So I had been going back and forth to court at least 4 times now, turning down deals, firing these clown attorneys, yada, yada. We get to Van Nuys Court, and this guy says, he's like, oh, you do music? And, because I was doing like club parties in Detroit. I threw shows for like D12, Royce da 5'9", a bunch of Detroit rappers. And I was in the club scene in Hollywood too. He's like, oh, I'm a DJ. I'm like, oh my God, this attorney now is telling, this is going to go bad. So anyway, I told him what deal I was willing to take. No prison time, nothing like that. I said that I'll take probation if they wanted, because I didn't want to I knew I was going to get probation. I wasn't going to go to trial. And so he goes, he talks to them, he comes back. He said they're willing to give you 6 months county jail and probation, and you'll get time served for the 4 months you've been in here or whatever, So I said, I'll take the deal right now. So I went back. The guy came through for me, man, like a champ, like he said he would on the phone. It was crazy. I can't believe I got a lawyer through that phone call, man. And I went back to LA County Jail for a week, and I had time served, man. They processed me out. Even the processing out part is just, everything is meant to wear you down there. It's a whole day. You're sitting in a tank while they're processing you out. And the worst is when you're withdrawing from dope. I mean, thank God that wasn't happening, because sometimes you're in and out real quick. It takes a whole couple days to get a bed, and then you get out real quick, and it takes a whole day just to get out. The place is insane. I can't describe it in depth how nuts it is. But yeah, man, I got jumped. I've been, through that system there. And so that's what happened, man. That was my first, they say, come on vacation, leave on probation. So now I'm like stuck in Los Angeles there, and I'm on felony probation. And I'll share more stories, man, in the future of how different things went there. So I just wanted to let you know how that first time went and how insane it was. So I appreciate you listening. I just wanted to document, man, some of the stuff I've been through and my crazy experiences. I went through 3 lawyers to get the deal that I could live with, and then got stuck there on felony probation, man, which, come to find out, turned into a major disaster. So stay tuned for more, man. That's what I got. That was my first time in LA County Jail. Not my last time, but that was my first time. So God bless all of you together. Let's get this dang muscle. I'm out.